Hey everybody, what's going on? So I have a review of a really cool kind of show that happened 2 nights ago on the 27th up in Everett, Washington. Um, Adipocere, Mind Palace, Land Lost, Kodak Courage, and The Truth. And this night was if you have a manifold of like the hardcore and hardcore adjacent music, this night kind of hit a lot of different spots. And so Everett's been kind of increasing the heavy music, hardcore and metal and all this stuff. Um, More bands are playing up in the Everett area, which is great because, like, on the one road, Hewitt Avenue, there's 5 venues. One of them is an arena, decent sized arena. So they'll get kind of the bigger names of all genres. Then there's King's Hall, which is kind of, they don't really do the heavy stuff, but they're bringing new types of music or different acts. I think like Flock of Seagulls just played there. So you have that, but then you have Lucky Dime, which is a small, usually or almost always 21, all ages, indie rock, but lately hardcore venue. And the hardcore shows have been going really well there from what I've seen. You have Tony V's, which is a lot of metal, or it's like a 500 cap venue, so they get some pretty big names in there. And then you have Black Lab Gallery, which is now becoming the Horseshoe, new ownership, and they were doing a lot of kind of indie type stuff, but I know that they're more open to heavier stuff now. So all that being said, we're starting to see some really cool stuff, and this show was like from Portland to Everett, right? So Seattle's kind of up here, Everett's here, Portland's here, but then all these surrounding areas and all this hardcore and hardcore adjacent stuff came together on this night, so it was really cool. Sorry, got off on a little rant there. But so The Truth opened. They're a newer band. I think this was their 3rd show, so didn't know anything about them. They only played for about 10 minutes. It was cool to see a new project launch, and I think the members might be in 1 or 2 other bands. I'm not 100% sure, but they went out there, they gave it a good shot. You could tell they're still getting used to each other, but it was like, okay, cool. I'll come back and check on these guys again, probably catch them at another show. Kodak Courage was up next, really young looking group, but these guys had some interesting stuff going on. So I think they're kind of like hardcore punk, but they definitely had some like almost more of like this. It was hardcore punk, but in kind of a grind structure where there are pieces that were just heavy and aggressive and fast, and pieces that were very screamy. And there was a vocalist switch at one point, and it was kind of awkward, but not awkward in a bad way. It was awkward in a, hey, we're in the middle of making something here. So I think, again, they were a young looking group, and I think if they stick to their formula, I think they're gonna have something really cool to offer. And that's awesome. So I get to see him again in 2 nights, and I'll kind of see if there's any difference or any progress in such a short period of time. But every show is a chance to kind of work on these things. So Land Lost was up next. So all or majority indigenous group, well respected group, but my understanding is they don't play a whole bunch. And they don't put out a ton of music, so I don't know the guys or their schedules, but I know that when they were playing, it felt like initially kind of straightforward hardcore, like modern hardcore, but then like there'd be a really nasty, ominous riff, or kind of like a NOLA southern metal riff thrown in there, or there were these other things just like added in, and you're like, at first you're kind of caught off guard by it, but then you're like, oh, that works in a really cool way. That is expansive and inclusive in a way that grabs most of the members of the crowd. So I thought that was really interesting. I'd definitely like to see them again. So right, we had these 3 kind of interesting dynamics, and then it brought us to Mind Palace, Oregon, like Portland or Portland bass band, and these guys were definitely like a hardcore punk with, again, a lot of just different elements added in. And I like it, like the vocalist stays on the floor. Granted, small stage, 5 members, but I like it. The vocalist is down there, people are dancing around her, and high energy and almost like a kind of a classic feel in a way, kind of like, man, I could have seen this band in the 90s type of thing. So they were probably my favorite act of the night overall, like as far as what I enjoyed the most, with my personal taste. But it was this really cool, okay, you had The Truth, and then Kodak Courage, and then Land Loss and Mind Palace, and just this varied approach to hardcore and adjacent stuff. Felt great. And so Adipocere was up next, and I may be mispronouncing their name, but pretty well respected band, I believe. And this was like this was a band that some people were chomping at the bit to see, and I kind of liken it to people would go to disco, in that you will go to disco because you want to go to dance. And I think with hardcore beatdown type stuff, and Adipocere was like a serious heavy hardcore band type of feel, people are there because they want to throw down. So I think the pros and cons to it, right, you go to what you want to see. I think some of the beatdown or like really serious stuff in any genre really kind of limits the interaction with the crowd. So I think these other bands, they had a kind of a wider variety of fans, but they probably had less of like the hardcore, genre-based fans. So, right, there's all this ebb and flow to the night and what's presented. But I think, honestly, I feel like the bands did really well. Adipocere came on, and it was like the definitely kind of the rowdiest, roughest set of the night. Real Heavy, that's a band that I'd probably see again. But at a night like this, you got this mostly Everett-centric or Everett adjacent mix of hardcore and hardcore adjacent stuff. So it was a wonderful variety of musical skill and presentation, as far as like, I just want to go to a good show and hear some good stuff, and I know that sounds basic or like, well, duh, right? It's pretty obvious that's what I want. But I think that we lose a lot of stuff these days. And I think when you go to a show where there's a lot of variety and things that you may not be quite into, but you are open to, I think that it's just this really kind of mentally interactive, musically based thing. And for me, I know I really enjoy that, so I'm sure a bunch of other people do. I love to go to metal. I love to just go see metal bands shredded out. But at the same point, it's like, I don't want that every night. And some nights that is boring. 4 guys on stage just headbanging, and I'm sure it's the same in any genre. Sometimes you need other stuff, or you need to get out of your comfort zone a bit. So I feel like this night did a really good job of that. Anyway, bit rambly today, but 5 youngish bands really putting in some good work, and they're worth you going to see them. And yeah, so the year is almost over. Hope you've had a great musical year. I've got a lot of reviews and things coming out, so keep an eye on the channel, and we'll see you soon.